So, I'm here with my wonderful grandfather, who's also an engineer. We're having beer with an engineer, and you've got lots of amazing stories of places you've been to back in the days when engineering involved a lot of traveling around the world. And you were once telling me a story about a time you had a beer in Bulgaria. What happened then?
Oh, it was an involved story. At that time, I was the managing director of a company that manufactured control equipment for forklift trucks.
Okay.
And that time, Bulgaria was an offshoot of the Soviet Union, and the practice of the Soviet Union was to devote their satellites, each one of them, a particular product. The Bulgarians got the product for making forklift trucks. So therefore, they invited me to go along to Bulgaria, to Sofia, to discuss with them the provision of controls for their forklift trucks. The visit was arranged by the Bulgarian Trade Embassy in London, and I went to Sofia together with my sales director to discuss with their engineers their requirements. That time was the time of the great Berlin airlift, where the Americans fed the Berliners with supplies because the Russians had closed the borders. And that was also at that time, there was the demonstration in Sofia against the Americans. My sales director and I decided to go and have a look at the demonstration, and we stood outside the American embassy and watched the crowds. And my sales director took out a camera to take a picture, at which time he was surrounded by half a dozen people who grabbed him and took the camera away from him and exposed the film and told them we'd committed an offence by recording things which weren't of stone. And they sent us immediately back to the hotel. The following day, we were due to meet the engineers from the Bulgarian engineers. But we were told suddenly that they've all contacted the flu and we weren't going to meet them. And at that time, the Bulgarian attaché from London was also in Sofia, and he came to us and he suggested, why don't we go out for a drink?
Okay.
So he took us out for a drink and took us round the corner to a very posh bar, and he said, do you know where you're sitting? And I said, no, I don't know where I'm sitting. He says, you're in the bar of the Soviet embassy. And I brought you here because really this is the only place we can talk without being overheard. And I want to warn you that you are technically a Soviet citizen since your father was born in the Soviet Union, and you're liable to military service. And if you blot your copy a bit more, they'll call you up and put you into the Soviet army. Now, I didn't like the idea, and I said, listen, I think we need to get out of here. And he says, yes, I would suggest that you take the next plane out from the east back to the west. So we rushed back to the hotel, got our passports, got back to the airport, and just then there was the first plane out was a plane to Vienna. And Vienna was not in the Soviet bloc, and we took the plane and spent a beautiful evening at the Vienna State Opera. That's the story of my Bulgarian visit.
Well, thank you for that. And that's a story of a good thing that can happen from having a drink in a Soviet bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, one more. You've got lots of wonderful stories. One of my favourite stories that you tell is what happened to your uncle when he decided to drive.
Oh yeah. Well, this is dating back to the mid 1930s.
Okay.
At that time, there wasn't an official requirement to do a driving test. All you had to do was to go and buy a car, jump into it, and go off and drive. And he decided, he's living in the gated area, to go to Newcastle and buy himself a car. He went to a garage in Newcastle. They sold him a car and they showed him what the pedals were, and he set off driving. He got to the high-level bridge which connects Gateshead and Newcastle. It's a very narrow bridge. And halfway along the bridge, the car stalled. He didn't know how to restart the vehicle, so he got out of the car, slammed the doors, and went off walking. And he left the car stuck on the high-level bridge. And how they recover it, I don't know, but he never drove since.
It's definitely one of my favourite. What would be a message from that story? Always check that you know how to drive before you get into a car.
I think that would be a good idea.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for listening to me, Ronnie, on The World is Storytelling podcast, named after the book by the same name. Follow and subscribe to keep up to date with the weekly episodes.